right, let me just introduce myself first. My name is Lisa Peters. I recently transitioned into the position of Magnet Program Director, but prior to that, for about 10 years, I was a member of the leadership team for our neurosurgical step down and our neurosurgical ICU unit. Originally started out as surgical patients, and we have transitioned into taking care of more neurosurgical patients. So let me just share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, hold on, I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm not a tech. It seems like my screen is frozen though. Hold on. Can you see it? No. All right, hold on. It's not letting me open back up my Zoom, so. Okay, hold on a second. I'm sorry.
All good, take your time.
Figured this out before. Share. Okay. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay. All right, let me go back to here. All right. So what do I want to share with you? So again, my name is Lisa Peters. I have an MBA, BSN. I am nurse exec board certified, and I have critical care certification. And I worked in the role of nurse manager, but I recently transitioned into the role of Magnet Program Director, and I'll be happy to share with you what all that means. So just a little bit of a history in terms of my journey. I've always wanted to be either a nurse or a teacher. And I chose nursing for a couple of reasons. I have many nurses in my family. My mother's a nurse. Several of her sisters are nurses. I have cousins that are nurses. And so if you ever go anywhere with us or get caught anywhere where we are, you'll be in very good hands. But I also had a desire to be a teacher. And so with all of that, you will see that I like to continue my education, but I also am very firm on my belief of developing others and helping others to, help to build their professional skills, or if they're pursuing a career in nursing or a career in any other path, I really try to foster those pursuits. And so I grew up in Miami, though I was born here in Brooklyn. I grew up in Miami, so I graduated from Miami Southridge Senior High School in 1991. I'm giving away my age. And then I moved back to New York. I went to New York City Technical College, and that's where I received my associate's degree in nursing. Um, I moved after I got married and I had children. I went back to school online to receive my Bachelor of Science in Nursing from the University of Phoenix. And then there was an opportunity given to us here at Lenox Hill and within Northwell to obtain our master's degree at Hofstra University free of charge. And so I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity, because at this point I was already in leadership, and you'll find out that running a unit is very similar to running a small business. And so I did attend Hofstra University, and I obtained my master's in strategic health. And so now I'm back in school again, in a role. I would like to pursue my doctorate. I am pursuing my doctorate in organizational leadership. This degree is a terminal degree for nursing, but it will be very instrumental in the role that I am in now, because it involves application of evidence-based research. And so that is where my journey is right now. That's where I'm continuing on my journey. In terms of my professional journey, At the age of 14, I started working at McDonald's as a crew member, and I worked there for about 4 years. Um, not not the most glamorous job, but it did teach me a lot about responsibility, customer service, and just being a part of a team. While I was in school and trying to, figure out my path, I worked at Sears as a sales associate, which that also helped me in terms of building customer service skills, working with people. And I think this is kind of where I started building some of my leadership skills because, I took the initiative to do different things within my department to improve where we were working and how we delivered our service. Um, During my second year of nursing school, for my associate's degree, at the end of that year, we were able to apply, go sit for our LPN boards. LPN is a licensed practical nurse. And that nurse is usually working, doing like, a lot of technical skills that are involved in nursing. And so I had the opportunity to work as a nurse right up here on the Upper East Side. There used to be a nursing home called Florence Nightingale Nursing Home on 96th Street. It has since closed, but I worked there for about a year. And then when I finally finished nursing school in 1995, at the time it was a little difficult to find a job as a registered nurse here in New York. So I decided to move back to Miami, where a lot of my family live. And my cousin was working at a rehab center, and she was able to help to get me a job there. So I worked there for about a year until my other cousin was able to help me to get into an acute care hospital. So I started working at South Miami Hospital. At South Miami Hospital, I worked on a med-surg unit that had patients who, there were a lot of orthopedic patients, but we also saw a lot of, it was like a mixed diagnoses. So there were orthopedic patients, surgical patients, as well as some ENT patients there. And so that's where I really, there was a lot of foundational nursing skills built there. And I worked with a wonderful team there of nurses who were very experienced, and they kind of like took me into under their wings and taught me a lot of different things that you wouldn't necessarily learn in nursing school. And so here we are now from 2000 until now, the year 2000 until now. That's 22 years. I've been working at Lenox Hill Hospital, and very proud to say that I've been working here. I've worked here as a clinical nurse up until 2012, and then I became an assistant nurse manager. 2015, I became the nurse manager. And this was all on the same unit that I was working on. And then most recently, I became the Magnet Program Director. So does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. All right. So why did I become a nurse, right? So like I said, I have a lot of people in my family that are nurses, but a lot of times, when, like, let's say when we're interviewing people and we're asking them why they wanted to become a nurse, sometimes people share a story of an experience that they may have had that impacted them and made them want to become a nurse. This was just always something that I wanted to do. Being a nurse, not everybody really sees the things that we do, the time that we spend with the patient. I found that nursing was a career that there's so many different areas that you can work in. You're not just limited to working at the bedside. There's so many different departments. They have forensic nurses, they have nurses that work in the home, there's so many different areas of nursing that you can work in that the opportunities, are countless. So there was the fact that I would be working with people, my desire to be able to impact their lives. Unfortunately, outcomes are not always what you want them to be. But you know, we spend as nurses, we spend the most time with the patients. We're here 24 hours, where our shifts are long, and we spend a lot of time with the patients during our shift. And so we have the opportunity to build great relationships with people and really make them have humanized experiences. They're not just a patient, they're, you know, individuals with individual needs. And so that's why I became a nurse, and that's why I have remained a nurse. um, so why did I go into nursing leadership? Truth be told, I never, ever, ever wanted to be in nursing leadership. I wanted to be at the bedside, caring for our patients, and no one could tell me anything different. But because I had such a strong desire to make sure that the care that we were delivered, that I was delivering and that my team was delivering was, you know, based on what I would want for my a family member of my own, which is exceptional care. Because of that, you know, I found myself always like being the voice of the unit if we were missing supplies that we needed, or if there was a concern that we thought needed to be addressed. I think with me, though I did bring concerns forward, I always made an effort to come up with solutions to those concerns. So when I was going to my manager about different concerns, I tried to ensure that, you know, I had something in my pocket in terms of what I thought we should do. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but that was something that was very important to me. And so because, you know, I was always stepping up, or people were always coming to me to ask me to, you know, bring this up the next time, you know, or I facilitated a couple of meetings with our leadership team and like the union to kind of talk about things that needed to be addressed on the unit. And so I guess through doing those types of things, people considered me an informal leader. Um, and so when the opportunity came about to move into an assistant nurse manager role, I I was a little hesitant, but I thought it would be a good idea because the assistant nurse managers here at Lenox Hill Hospital, they are very clinically involved. And that was something I never wanted to lose, was my clinical skills. Like I said before, I really enjoy being at the bedside. And so the opportunity to be able to impact um, you know, our work environment and the care that we're giving to our patients on a different level, as well as being able to maintain my clinical skills and still being close to the patient, you know, that was kind of a no-brainer. So I applied for the position and I got it. And I did that for 3 years. And during that time, I got my certification in critical care, and I became involved in other initiatives within the hospital. And I was really able to, you know, have an impact in the areas where I thought that I needed to. And so then my nurse manager came to me a few years later to let me know that she too would be transitioning into a different role. And the conversation was around, you know, her saying that she thought that I would do well in this position in the nurse manager position if I was interested in applying. So again, I went back to, oh, you know, I'm going to lose my clinical skills. And, you know, it was a little bit of, you know, I was kind of having an internal battle with myself. But then I also looked at the opportunities that it would afford me if I did move into the role, and also the support that I would have from my team. So I decided to apply, and I was offered the position, and I took it. And I have to say that even though I never wanted to be in leadership, I was in a position of leadership for a total of 10 years. So it was 3 years as an assistant nurse manager and 7 as a nurse manager. Um, and I have to say that that's one of the most rewarding roles that I've ever been in. And I'm so happy that I made that decision to go into leadership. I've impacted people in ways that I didn't even realize. And some of that I didn't even find out until recently when I was moving out of that role into my new role, because because of the things that they were telling me that I did for them. So it's not an easy role. but it certainly is one that if you did choose to go into nursing, and you have a desire to build really strong nurses, build a strong team, collaborate with providers, make sure that patients are getting the care that they want, building relationships with patients and their family members. It's something to consider. So let's talk a little bit about what the responsibilities are for a nurse manager. So the nurse manager has 24-hour operational responsibility. Mine was of a 12-bedded neurosurgical intensive care unit and a 17-bed surgical step-down unit. So what does that mean? I had a team of about 90 employees, depending on how many shifts they work a day. It might be 90 plus or a little bit less than 90. My team consisted of the assistant nurse managers, the nurses, PCAs, which are patient care associates. Those are the equivalent to nursing assistants. We also had PSFs. So our PSFs is what you would consider like the ward clerk. They are patient service facilitators. That's the face that you greet when you come onto the unit, and they're usually helping to just keep everything together, really, because they're right at the front of the nursing station, and they help with the charts and help with patients coming and going and putting in orders for things to be fixed. And so they have a very important role on our units. We also I monitored and managed the fiscal resources. So even though nursing has a lot to do with the clinical aspect, I had to make sure that we were spending our money wisely. So that meant in terms of staffing, that we had what we needed and we weren't going over unnecessarily. In terms of supplies, I had to make sure that I'm monitoring the supplies and that we're using what we're supposed to be using and not wasting. I also monitor the unit operational performance and patient experience. So operational performance is a very huge umbrella. We have to look at things that may cause patients harm. We have to look at environmental, making sure that things are, not out of what would be considered compliance on the unit, visually, physically. We have to make sure if things are broken that we're making sure we get them fixed. And then, most importantly, because the patient is at the center of everything that we do, we have to make sure that when, that the needs of the patients are being met. We have the things that we need to care for the patient, and that where these things, whether or not we're doing a great job, these things are reflected in the metrics, right? So if we're doing really well with patient harms, it's going to show in the numbers. It's going to tell us this is how many injuries or harms that we've had during this particular month. If we're doing well in terms of the patient experience, the patients are going to tell us because we give them surveys. So I, along with my leadership team, we have to monitor all of those things. And when we find that we're falling out of range for those metrics, we have to do things, put what we call corrective action in place to fix those things. But proactively, we come up with things to just make those things work in the first place, right? We also develop unit goals that support the values and the goals of the organization. So, we have to be in alignment with what the system, Northwell system and Lenox Hill Hospital have as their goals. So whatever they have as their focus, that is what we have to align with, and that's what we have to make sure that we're doing things to fall into line with. And we promoted and facilitated positive patient experiences. So we do what we call cipher rounds on the patients, and we go into the rooms, and it's a script that you ask certain questions to ensure that you're addressing certain things. But the overall idea of the cipher rounds is to just make sure that if the patient did have an experience that was unpleasant, that we're kind of catching those things and finding a remedy to those concerns before the patient goes home. Because once a patient goes home, whether they had sometimes, a patient will have their almost the entire visit as a great experience, and they have one experience that's bad. when they go home, that one experience is what they're going to remember. So if we can kind of catch that before the patient goes home, that minimizes them, you know, maybe writing a letter that they had a bad experience. They may mention it, but then say, you know, that the manager or the nurse or whoever came into the room and resolved whatever their concern was. And so our manager rounding is very important. And we also want to be able to do it to make sure that we're welcoming patients to the unit and that we're meeting their expectations. And when we're not, we want to address those things. Okay. Um, my other responsibilities include mentoring, coaching, and counseling team members. So there's an opportunity for this to happen on any given day. You know, we are trying, when you're in a role like this, you always want to think about the people that you're developing for when you exit the position, that you could, you know, you would feel comforted in knowing that you've trained this person or you've coached this person or mentored this person in order for them to move into a position and lead the same way that you lead. Mentorship, however, is usually a longer term relationship that you have with somebody where you're continuously doing things to help them to develop and you know, bouncing off of each other in terms of ideas and concerns. Coaching and counseling, it could be for various reasons. Sometimes it may be for, you know, like coaching someone because maybe they don't know how to do something, or counseling maybe because, you know, the behavioral expectations of the organization they're not aligning with those. And so you have to kind of coach them into that. So what I usually tell people is that, you know, when you have high performing employees, and medium performing employees and employees that are performing below medium, you always want to do things to help to bring the employees who are not performing where they're supposed to be up to that level. And then you create an expectation so that, you know, if they're not meeting those expectations, at least you've given them a chance to do so. And then you have conversations around that. Collaborating with other team members, other members of the interdisciplinary team. So we work really closely with our providers, because of course, you know, that's the doctor, the providers, the PAs, the advanced, the nurse practitioners. They're the ones who kind of they provide us with the orders that we have to follow in order to care for the patient. But because the patient is not only cared for by doctors, nurses, providers, and nurses, we have to work as a team, and kind of like provide our own input from every aspect in order to ensure that we're delivering the best possible care for the patient. And so we do work closely with the providers, with the social workers, who are very involved in ensuring that patients' needs are met, you know, socially, making sure that they're discharged appropriately with the right resources. Our case managers, those are nurses that are involved in that process of discharging our patients, nutritionists, the physical and occupational therapists, the pharmacy, and there's a host of other people that are involved in the patient's care, but many of these people, we have to work together and communicate effectively, so that we are delivering the best care. I worked on performance improvement projects. And so this was one of the projects that we did with Institute, and we're still doing it, Institute for Healthcare Improvement. We worked on value management, and we worked with multiple members of the interdisciplinary team, very often with our providers. And the idea really is that we're trying to improve the care that we're giving to the patients while minimizing the cost that it takes to do that. And so we look at different metrics in this area in order to do so. And we huddle weekly to discuss these things, and we present to the staff, and we involve the staff, and it creates an awareness for them in terms of how we're delivering the care and how we can minimize the cost. So we also plan events and games for our team members and engagement. We've done wellness sessions, which you would see up in the right corner. I've hosted wellness sessions where we just buy refreshments. We've had our holistic nurse, pet therapy, music therapy. And this is all just because, you know, when we recognize that our team is burned out, we try to do things to kind of uplift them. This other photograph is just a picture of us. We had attended the Magnet conference, and so some of our team members we had several team members that were able to attend, and so this is just one of the outings there. We've done the tunnel to towers run as a team. And then this is one of our huddle activities that we do down in the bottom left-hand corner, where we have team members looking into a mirror and reading a positive affirmation just to lift the mood. And people love it. That, you know, it helps them to feel good about themselves. And it's a really nice way to start your shift. We've done beach days. We've played games. Like if there's like something that we really need to make sure the staff knows, we try to play games to make it fun but memorable. We've done a virtual basketball game where we've broken up our team and our staff into teams, and whoever performed the best in different areas, they got points. And from this basketball game, we were able to take a group of team members to a concert at Barclays Center. So lots of fun things that we do. Some of the things that I've accomplished as a nurse manager, we have the unit with the most DAISY awards. The DAISY award is a international award given to nurses who have the, you know, they deliver compassionate care and they're recognized as an outstanding nurse. This award came from you know, a patient who his parents started this foundation because the Barnes family, they started this foundation because the patient wanted his nurses to be recognized after his death. He wanted his nurses to be recognized. So his parents started this foundation, and it's an international recognition. And the nurses, they go on this website and there's like a tribute to each nurse that's given the award. We've had tier 1 for employee engagement for 3 consecutive years. Tier 1 is really just saying that, you know, there's tier 1 is the highest tier that you can go when it comes to how involved your employees are. There's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And so we were tier 1 for 3 years in a row because I really try to encourage my employees and my team members to be involved and take advantage of any opportunities there are to be to develop as professionals. And that just means being involved in different initiatives or having a voice or coming up with solutions to some of the problems that we might have. I did win an award for distinction in leadership in 2019. I'm a co-lead on CAUTI prevention. So CAUTI stands for catheter associated urinary tract infections. So when patients have a catheter in to empty their bladder, we really try to minimize the length of time that those stay in because we don't want them to get infections. So I co-lead on that. I'm also a co-chair on our nurse manager, assistant nurse manager, and educator council. That was back in 2021, but I had remained an active member of that. And nurse leader mentor, I've mentored other leaders. I'm the co-chair of our recruitment and retention committee, where we really try to do activities around pulling in great talent and also keeping them. Very important. And then I've participated as a planning committee member for a neurocritical conference in 2019. I also presented there, and our ENLS, which is emergency neurological life support. So this is just some of the things that we do. On the next screen, just wanted to share with you some of the nursing collaboration that goes on and break up some of the monotony of listening to me talk. So that's just my team. Sometimes they like to do little videos to just kind of break up some of the stress that they have. I see, is this a question here? I can't see. Okay, no, that's somebody's comments. All right. So my new role now, I'm Magnet Program Director. So a little bit about Magnet. The American Nursing Credentialing Center's highest and most prestigious credential a healthcare organization can achieve for nursing excellence and quality patient care. Lenox Hill Health Greenwich Village, and Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital. We're all considered one campus, and we achieved our first designation in 2020. And if you think about that, we were still very much in the window of COVID. So it was a great feat, and we're very proud of that. And so we are working towards our redesignation, which will be in 2024, but the work starts now. So what do I have to do in order for this to happen? All right, so as the Magnet Program Director, I collaborate with the nursing leadership in attaining and maintaining Magnet designation. I ensure that the materials and products are developed and implemented within appropriate timeframes. So this role really requires that I am pretty much everywhere in the hospital. It's, I need to know who all of the nurses are. I need to know what all of the projects are that they're working on their units, because all of these things and all of this great work that they're doing help to formulate what we call our document, right? So for Magnet, you have to submit a huge document where it requires you to have people who are writers, and basically it's telling stories about about nursing excellence, right? But you have to comply with the requirements of each story that you create. It has to comply with the standard that they give you, and so it's a lot of work, but there's so many great things going on within the hospital that it's hard. It's a lot of work, but it shouldn't be hard to get the information. Most of the work is really getting to know the nurses and the units, and to find out exactly what great work they're doing. So of course you have to be an effective communicator. You have to build really great relationships with both management as well as the teams. You have to build relationships with the medical staff. But I would say pretty much all, as many great relationships as you can form, the better, because, sometimes the stories might not necessarily be in places that you may not even expect them to be. You have to include diversity as part of this, because, that's something that, we recognize that in a lot of the areas that we do have work to do, but I think a lot of, in terms of diversity, I think that a big part of that is really ensuring that people receive the education that they need to, in order to be, to have better relationship and better understanding of people's differences, and be open to learning more about each other, right? I obviously have to have knowledge of the clinical practice. So I'm not an expert in every single area of nursing, but you have to have a general knowledge of the practice of nursing. And solidly foundational to everything that we do in this document and really in nursing is based on evidence, right? So the focus of this document is evidence-based information. So evidence-based clinical management, practice outcomes, management, and research. So that's very important as part of the Magnet document. I also get to do a lot of things that, are fun. So we have to focus on performance improvement and metrics, but I believe that whenever we are doing things like that, we don't want to make it feel like work. We want it to be fun for the staff. So even though they're doing work, they find enjoy in doing so. And in order to be a change agent, you have to be able to get people to recognize why the change is happening, why the change is important, and how important it is to have them as part of that change. And then I spoke about succession planning. So succession planning, again, is you are helping to develop people in a way that in your absence, they would be able to move right into that position and be able to perform the duties of that position, right? And then collaborating with human resources. So why would I want to collaborate with human resources? Because we want, as a magnet facility, one of the benefits of being a magnet facility is that you attract great talent, right? Everybody wants to work at a magnet facility because the quality of care is better, and the in terms of the patient, in terms of the staffing ratios and things are better, and in terms of the talent that works there, you're going to get people of high caliber in terms of their training and their experience, because they want to work at a magnet facility. And then facilitating professional governance meetings and work. So professional governance is it's a group, it's a council that we have that's kind of falls under the whole requirements that we need to have for magnet. And really what it is we have several, like maybe about 30 nurses from representing various parts of the hospital that come together once a month to have meetings and discuss challenges that we're having on our unit, great things that we're having on our unit. We share ideas, and it's structured and broken up into different sessions where we discuss quality. We also have what we call a collaborative care council that's like that involves nurses, but also other interdisciplinary teams within the hospital. That's where we have our recruitment and retention meetings, our IT innovators for all of our IT folks, our evidence-based practice councils, and we've had also other councils like Expressions, which represented our LGBTQ community. And we have also had, there's like several councils that go on that day. So I help to facilitate. I just started, so I help to facilitate. Just did my first session where you're facilitating the meetings. You have to make sure the meeting minutes and the information and all the meetings flow, and that information and any concerns raised during those meetings are escalated to the appropriate people. And then I'll also be facilitating the writing of the magnet document, which is what I was just describing, and its submission. And we're starting that process now, but our submission is not due until 2024. But it will take us a solid 2 years to be able to complete that process. And finally, the most exciting part of this role is promoting nursing excellence and excitement about our practice. So, part of that role is that I'm going out again and meeting nurses and really getting to know who they are and what they love about working here and what they want to do to improve the work that they do here. And so these are actually just pictures from the last couple of days where we were doing an event celebrating the nurses for completing our NDNQI survey, which is very instrumental in our application for our magnet, because this is part of one of the standards that we have to submit information. And so our nurses completed the survey and we outperformed on this survey in 5 of the 7 categories. So that helped us to meet the requirement, this particular requirement for our application. And we're really proud of them. And we're really happy that these were the results. So that's me in a nutshell. I hope that I presented you with enough information for you to have questions. Does anyone have any questions?
Hey, Lisa.
Hi.
Thanks a lot.
Dr. Langer.
Thanks a lot. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I reason why I'm jumping in here is I wanted to see this because I want to make sure that I think I don't know what percentage of the students on this talk are planning on going to medical school versus nursing school versus PA school. But no matter what school you go to, I think it's remarkably important that the medical students from very early on develop good relationships with nursing, and that you work hard to not only respect one another, but learn together. Wherever you go, push on the medical schools, the PA school, to get involved with finding ways for nursing and medical school to collaborate, and vice versa. The nurses have to work hard to understand what's going on in the medical schools. There's a lot of cultural reasons for this, and there's a lot of some nursing schools are remote from medical school, for example. Some medical schools don't even have nursing schools. That's part of the problem. If that's the case and you become a doctor, respect the nurses, understand their skill set, spend some time with them, watch them, give them a chance to educate them to you. And if you're a nurse, I would argue the same. Go to the doctor's conferences, go to the OR, you got to give each other a chance, because there's way too little of this in both of our businesses. And it not only affects, just relationships, it affects the patient care, that we fail many times because of lack of communication, lack of understanding. And this is the mission that we're on here at Lenox Hill now. Unfortunately, Lisa and I used to work together, for better or worse. And, we have a great relationship, and I really appreciate your coming and giving this talk. And I hope it was as valuable to the group as it was to me. So there you go. Someone's
Thank
asking
you.
what your favorite part of your job is right now. Elizabeth Mays, to you.
Oh,
Lee.
my favorite part of the job is that I get to, so not only am I helping to build nursing excellence, I'm doing that in conjunction with getting to know many other people throughout the hospital, whether it be providers, people that work in like all over. I'm getting to meet so many people. And I think that for us to be able to represent Lenox Hill in this way, it's so important. But to get everybody excited about representing Lenox Hill in this way is what I think is going to be the most exciting part of my job.
That's great. Any questions out there? What is something you would like to accomplish in the future?
So in the future, this position is so new to me. There's so many different things that I have as ideas that I would like to do. But there's some different aspects specific to nurses training other nurses that I would like to add some more structure to that. I work under the umbrella of nursing education. I'm not a nurse educator, but I would really like to take part in helping to change the way that we do things and experiences that some of our nurses have as orientees, as well as preceptors, who are the people who train them. I feel like we should invest a little bit more time in our preceptors. Number one, ensuring that they're prepared to precept. I find that they struggle with the ability to be able to provide feedback to their orientees. Sometimes somebody's not doing well, it doesn't serve them any justice to not tell them that, but there's a way to deliver that information. And I think that some of our preceptors struggle with that because they don't want to hurt people's feelings. But we have to make sure that people are practicing safe. And if you don't give somebody the feedback that they need, it doesn't give them the opportunity to make an improvement in that area. So that's some work that I would like to do. And just increasing engagement with our nurses and building our relationships with our providers, because that's so important, as Dr. Langer alluded to, that, we have that relationship and that partnership so that we can really make sure that we're delivering the best care to the patients.
I think, without good collaboration, and that's something that everyone should understand, that working alone doesn't work. We're driven, and our ambition drives us alone, particularly neurosurgeons. And we have to be really respectful of what's going on around it. Not that you can't do both, but sometimes you have to be reminded of it. And I think it's got to come from the top. So that's just reminding you now. Don't not do that. Here's somebody asking, what is a great quality that one could have, what one should have, into the medical field, whether PA and nurse or doctor?
What is the
best quality that someone should have to enter the medical field as a PA, doctor, or nurse?
I think the best quality, besides like being able to I think the best quality is to be open, like be teachable, right? Because just because I'm a nurse manager doesn't mean that I can't learn something from, just a nurse or from a patient care technician. Just because Dr. Langer's a doctor doesn't mean he can't learn. So be open to any opportunity to learning, because every opportunity to learn is an opportunity to grow. And if you just take that, it's invaluable. You can go so far with that.
Anything else? So our last question, what is the weak spot in the healthcare system you've seen during your career? And have you seen, and you have any directions how you can fix it?
The least,
Basically the weakness, the biggest weakness in healthcare and how you might be able to fix it.
so I think that one of the weaknesses that we have in healthcare are the disparities that we have, and especially as it relates to people of color. I think that we need to have, and just not for people of color, but I think that we need to have more representation, in positions like this, because we need to make sure that people, or even if there's not representation, we need to make sure that we're providing education and that people understand the population that they serve, right? So, whether or not you're from that community, ensuring that you have an understanding of the challenges that that community faces in order to be able to appropriately meet the needs of those patients. And so I think the best way to do that is to incorporate that in our, whatever training that we're providing to our healthcare providers, to ensure that they know how to navigate those situations. The worst thing is to make assumptions about different communities. And we live in New York City, where we represent every corner of the world. So that in itself is a challenge in terms of making sure that you understand everyone's culture and their background and things like that. But typically, if you're working in a facility, there tends to be consistency in terms of the people that come there. And so as a healthcare provider, it's our responsibility to make sure that we understand our communities and care for them the way that they need to be cared for.
I would agree with that. I mean, I would say that communication to me is the biggest weakness by far. And the tools that we've been given to communicate and the cultures, the way we're trained. And I mean, we have the technology. It's just people forget to say this, they forget to do that. The EMRs are a struggle. Nurses in particular have a ton of documentation. They're very EMR intense that slows them down. So that affects their ability to take care of patients. And sometimes too much technology is bad too. So I think we have to streamline some of that, even incrementally. We're working right now on improving the way nurses deal with their stroke patients. They have to do so much documentation. It's overwhelming. Working hard to try to fix that problem. So you fix one at a time, but at least try. And if you try, you're likely to be successful in this business, because most people don't try. So that's what I would say about that. How would you go about handling conflict between staff?
Okay, so when it's between staff, my best approach, or my preferred approach, is really to let them manage the conflict themselves. So like if somebody comes to me to tell me that, this person said something and they were offended or something like that, my first response usually is, well, did you have a conversation with the person? And when I say conversation, I mean, did you pull them to a side where no one else was around and try to have a conversation with them, before coming to me? So usually if the response is no, I tell them that they should really try. If they feel uncomfortable, I usually offer to be someone that's like sitting in the middle. But I always tell them the best approach is try to have a conversation with the individual, because it builds better relationships than getting me involved or somebody else involved. But conflicts, should be dealt with appropriately. They need to be pulled into a private area where there aren't people standing around to witness. And we certainly don't want these things to happen in the earshot of patients either. So for the most part, that has worked. There have been a few times when I've had to get involved, but you know, I think most people prefer to kind of work it out themselves than for it to get to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest problem, you have to be self-aware of yourself. If you have conflict, first, if it's you, it's one thing. If it's somebody else, if you say between staff and you is different than other staff. So they're two separate issues. I think if there's conflict between yourself and staff, I think the most important thing you do is you have to have self-awareness and make sure you understand how the other side might see things. And it's very easy to overreact. Everybody's working really hard and trying to do the right thing. And sometimes half the battle is just overcoming your own emotions first. As far as dealing with conflict between others, I would agree with Lisa. You know, it's about letting people handle it themselves, because the more you get involved, you know, you really have to guide people with leadership, and I think that's the best way to do it. If it rises above that, then you have to get a lot of information. It becomes really tough, especially because there might be personal relationships involved. So you really want to avoid that if you can. Did you ever have any doubt about yourself throughout your professional career, Lisa? That's asked by Jamal Reynolds.
Okay, so I've never had any doubt about being a nurse, but almost every day that I walked in as a leader, I did. And it's for multiple reasons. You know, you just sometimes never feel like, so it's a thankless job, so you have to go into it knowing that, and I'm okay with that. But, you know, people, when you are in the role of a leadership role, you're always on stage. People are watching you, they are making judgment on you, and many times it's based on things that maybe someone else said, or they don't know you, so they form their own opinion. So I think one of the hardest things that I had to learn is like not to take things personally. But I you know, I always second guess myself whether I'm doing the right thing for my team, or if I'm making the right decisions, or, you know, so that's a constant battle. But oftentimes I get reassurance from them that I am doing the right thing, but that's usually where I have the struggle, is making the right decisions, because things affect people differently, and you always often have to make decisions for a group instead of focusing on single individuals. So that sometimes is a challenge.
And what is one thing not taught in med school, or say nursing school, med school, that healthcare providers should keep in their mind and incorporate in their lives? One thing not taught in nursing school.
I think in nursing school, one of the things I think that I myself don't recall being taught is I don't think that we're taught like how to necessarily deal, because so like we work on a neurosurgical unit, right? So we get patients of varying ages that, you know, we want everybody's outcome to be that they, you know, they leave the hospital, they walk out of the hospital, but unfortunately that's not always the case. And so I feel like one of the things that I would have probably appreciated is maybe, or more of, is probably dealing with death and dying, and how we provide support to patients, patient family members, because you just can never really find the right words to say. And often, you know, it's left up to the provider to like have those conversations of what direction the patient's heading in and things like that. But and as nurses, we're there to kind of support that, but you just sometimes don't know what words to say to provide that support. And so we rely heavily upon our palliative care team and social workers and things like that. But I would have liked to see more of that, just knowing the field, the specialty that we're in, to help to support families especially.
Great. Well, as far as me, I've had doubts. You have to have doubt. If you don't have doubt, then you're probably not being honest with yourself. But there's always obstacles that you're going to come across. So you're feeling like your skill set. I mean, from the day you learn to put an IV in, you're afraid. And part of being training is overcoming that by working hard. And the problem really has to do with least in our business, that people just get a little bit full of themselves and lose sight of what the really goal is. But that's part of the process because it's so difficult. And you have to have a lot of self-confidence to overcome some of the difficulties. So one thing goes hand in hand with the other. As far as doubt in my professional career, I never doubted that if I worked hard, I'd be okay. But you have doubts pretty much every day, you know, when you in an operation or whatever. One thing not taught in med school that in healthcare providers should keep in mind is just the importance of teams and collab. They do it in MBA school. We learn about leadership. They learn about, you know, psychological profiling. There's none of that. I'm really into Stoic philosophy now, and the 4 tenets of Stoicism are courage, wisdom, temperance, and justice. And I think if you focus on those things, which are not taught in medical school or nursing school, I'd imagine, you'll be a better doctor or nurse for sure. And that's, so you have to really understand yourself and understand your motivations, understand your philosophy, understand your ethics, and encourage collaboration with others, help other people out, and things will work out. So I think that's one thing that I think is certainly not taught in medical school, certainly not in my medical school. Hopefully we can change that. Any books to read? Any books you particularly like, Lisa?
I really enjoy reading self-improvement books. So one of the last books that I read, and it's not a bad thing, but it said nice girls don't get the corner office. So it's not a book telling you to not be a nice girl. It's really just kind of helping women to navigate, you know, what are some of the things that maybe we do that our male counterparts maybe don't do that help them to advance. And so it's really enlightening in terms of how people's perspectives vary when it comes to women versus men. And it's very interesting. It was a very interesting book. One of my direct leaders had suggested that I read it, but it's actually very funny as well. So I always like to read books like that and books that are inspiring, because books, especially when it comes to like team inspiration, I read a lot of books like that because you know, it's important to have your teams engaged and to have the support of your teams. That's how you accomplish the goals that you set. So
Well, I think we're at the end of this. I'm glad I was here. You want to take it from here, Quinn? Thanks, Lisa, for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was just gonna
everybody.
thank you for your time, Lisa. That was amazing.
Okay.
There's still some people in the chat, but yeah, we are at the end. It's 12 o'clock. Thank you, Dr. Langer, for coming back.
No problem.
And I feel we'll see you later.
Okay.
See everyone at the same time tomorrow, 9. Yeah, same link.
I'll be on tomorrow with a Chairman's Corner, which is a little bit more philosophical. As you know, I tend to get that way these days. So, and I'll honestly, I did write an article that you can read. Do you have that, Quinn? You may want to send it to everybody ahead of time.
Okay.
You know, that's because I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But long story short, look forward to Chairman's Corner tomorrow. Loving you. Great job, Lise. Thank you.